Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if your memory of a crime really matters when you have to pick out the bad guy from a lineup? This new study dives deep into that exact question. So, imagine you've witnessed something serious, maybe even a crime. Later, the police ask you to identify the person responsible. How good is your memory of the event connected to your ability to actually pick out the right suspect? That is the core puzzle researchers set out to solve here. Eyewitness testimony is super important in court, especially when there is not much other evidence. But sometimes, eyewitnesses get it wrong, and that is a leading cause of wrongful convictions. We've all seen those shows where a witness points the finger, and it turns out to be the wrong person. So understanding the link between memory for the event and identifying the suspect is crucial. The researchers wanted to see if how well you remember the details of a crime, like what someone was wearing or where it happened, actually helps you identify the perpetrator later. They suspected that if you have a better memory for the person, you'd be better at picking them out from a lineup. But they also knew that memory for the event itself might be different. They basically thought that people who correctly identified the bad guy would remember more things about the event, especially about the people involved compared to those who picked the wrong person or said they couldn't identify anyone. To test this, they designed a clever experiment. First, participants watched a short video of a mock crime. This video was carefully chosen because it came with ready-made lineups of suspects, which is super handy for researchers. After watching the video, people took a memory test. This wasn't just any memory test, it was designed to measure two different things: memory for the actual event and memory for the people involved, like the perpetrators. Then came the lineup. They were shown pictures of several people and had to decide if the perpetrator was among them. This was done in two parts for two different perpetrators in the video. They actually did a smaller test run first, called a pilot study. This is pretty common in research to iron out any kinks. They had over 100 people watch the video, take the memory test, and do the lineup. This helped them figure out the best way to measure memory. They developed a 40-question test. Some questions were about the event itself, like where did the crime occur, or what color was the blanket? Other questions were specifically about the people involved, like what color was the first perpetrator's shirt, or what was the victim's shoe color. They use a special statistical approach called item response theory, or IRT. Think of IRT like a super sophisticated way to measure how good someone's memory is. Instead of just counting right and wrong answers, it looks at how difficult each question is and how well it separates people with good memory from those with not so good memory. It is like having a really precise measuring tape for memory. They found that the memory test seemed to measure two distinct things: memory for the event and memory for the people. Then they moved on to the main study with a much larger group of nearly 800 participants. The process was the same. Watch the crime video, take the memory test, and then do the lineups. They wanted to make sure their memory test was reliable, so people took the memory test and the lineup twice, with a little break in between to see if their answers stayed consistent. Now, for the exciting part, what did they find? Well, it turns out that memory for people and memory for the event aren't quite the same when it comes to identifying a suspect. When they looked at memory for people, the results were pretty clear. People who correctly identified the perpetrator in the lineup remembered significantly more details about the people involved in the crime. This difference was not just statistically significant, meaning it is unlikely to be due to chance, but also practically meaningful according to their criteria. They had a specific goal, a smallest effect size of interest, or SESOI, which was basically like saying a difference of one detail remembered is meaningful, and the difference in person memory was much bigger than that. For memory about the event itself, the story was a bit different. While there was a statistically significant connection, meaning there was a small difference, it wasn't considered practically meaningful based on their SESOI. So even though people who identified the suspect might have remembered a tiny bit more about the event, it wasn't enough to be considered a big deal in terms of practical importance. They also noticed a cool pattern. When they looked at how people responded to the memory questions based on their lineup choice, it all lined up. Those who correctly identified the perpetrator remembered the most correct details. Those who picked the wrong person tended to have more incorrect details in their memory answers. And those who said the perpetrator wasn't there gave the most don't know answers. This is where it all comes together. The study found that eyewitness memory and identification accuracy are linked, but it really matters what you remember. Remembering details about the people involved, like their faces, their clothes, their build, seems to be the most important for making a correct identification. Remembering details about the event itself, like the setting or what was stolen, seems to be less directly tied to accurately picking out the suspect. This finding challenges some older research that suggested memory for minor details might even be a bad thing, or that there was no link at all. The researchers think their study might have had more power to detect these smaller links, and importantly, they used the recognition memory test. This is a key point. Eyewitness identification is a form of recognition, so it makes sense that the memory test based on recognition would be more closely related to identification accuracy than a test where you have to recall information from scratch. It's like asking someone to pick out a song they've heard before versus asking them to write a new song. They also highlighted the importance of using good measurement tools. By using IRT and validating their memory test, they could be more confident that they were actually measuring what they intended to measure. This is super important for making reliable conclusions. Of course, no study is perfect. One thing they noted was that in the lineup, sometimes many more people correctly identified one perpetrator than the other. This could be because one perpetrator was harder to spot or remember. Even with this imbalance, the overall pattern held across both lineups, which is good for the study's strength. So, what is the big takeaway? Your memory for the people involved in a crime is more strongly linked to your ability to identify the perpetrator in a lineup than your memory for the event itself. This is important for legal systems to understand. When evaluating eyewitness testimony, it is crucial to consider not just if a witness remembers details, but what kind of details they remember. Focusing on person memory might be more predictive of identification accuracy. Scromy's take on this is that it is a really solid study that uses modern statistical tools to tease apart different aspects of memory. The distinction between event memory and person memory is crucial, and they've shown why it matters for eyewitness identification. It's like having a good memory for faces is key to recognizing the face of someone who committed a crime, even if you forget the exact color of the getaway car. This research could help legal professionals better understand the reliability of eyewitness accounts. For future research, it would be interesting to see how these findings hold up in real-world criminal cases, not just lab experiments. And maybe explore if training people to pay more attention to person-related details could improve identification accuracy. What do you guys think about these findings? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into eyewitness memory, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Rubin's Mind Lab for more science explained simply, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next episode. Thanks for watching!